Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show. Xenia Muntean is the CEO, founder of Planable. Welcome, Xenia.
Thank you so much, Alex, for having me on the show.
Yeah, great to have you. Great to have you. As we were just saying, have been seeing you around, in the SaaS space for the last couple of years, and speaking at a few events and so on, some other press. So it's really great to have you on the SaaS Doc Show.
Thanks a lot.
Finally. For those that don't know you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Planable, which is a collaboration platform for social media teams to work together on content. And I started the company about 4 years ago. And prior to that, I actually had my own social media marketing agency. So I've been in the advertising world for a long time. And I was obsessed with the ad world since I was a teenager. So I'm very happy to finally build something that will help the industry overall. With Planable, we've been working with, thousands of teams from across the world. I could mention a few of the brands that we've worked with, such as Jaguar, Rover, Hyundai, Xenia Muntean, United Nations, and we're helping all of those teams to simplify and speed up the way they are planning and collaborating and approving content for social.
And are you a solo founder? Have you got co-founders?
Yeah, luckily I have co-founders. So I have two co-founders, actually, the more the better. So I have two co-founders. One is our CTO, Nick. He also worked in the industry before Planable. As a web developer, he's seen, other social media managers in the industry struggling with spreadsheets, and he thought that, this should probably be improved. My second co-founder, Vlad, he also worked in the agency space and also has struggled with the problem himself.
And whereabouts are you based?
Yeah, so we have two offices in Eastern Europe. Though we're selling, most of our customers are based in the US. We're managing to build, a business out of Eastern Europe. And I think, with everything that's happening today, that is becoming, easier and easier to build a business remote.
Are you, I guess with everything that's been happening this year, are you currently remote and away from the office, or have you gone back to the office, or did you never leave?
And no, we left. We did leave. So we have. I'm currently based in Bucharest, and we have a team here. So we did leave. We spent the entire spring and a part of the summer in lockdown and working from home. But eventually, we made. Each team member made a decision personally, and a lot of us are back to the office. We just couldn't take it anymore. We kind of missed the social, conversations.
Yeah, I think we're definitely having those conversations internally at SaaS Doc and other companies. I'm sure everybody's having that there. Initially, the idea of remote was very exciting, not for all, but for some, and now people kind of really miss that. I think that engagement and conversations that happen, face to face. And what about, did you take venture capital, or you bootstrapped?
Yeah, so we did take some venture capital. We actually had our first investment. We had it very early on in our business. It was like a family fund type of investment, angel ticket level. And then we went through an accelerator, Techstars in London. So we took an investment from them. And then about a year ago, we closed our seed round. So we're funded.
Okay. And what is the plan now? You've done your seed round. What was the plan? Like, we get this money, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, so attacking more of the US market, that was definitely one of the reasons why we decided to raise, double down on enterprises. We started getting quite a lot of traction in the enterprise space, and we, most of our growth up to that point, most of our growth up to raising that seed round came just from, self-serve, organic, inbound. So we decided to invest more in sales, more in marketing, and more into penetrating the enterprise market. And then another reason why we decided to do that is to expand the product. So we have a good head start offering collaboration to social media teams. And the next step is to take over the entire content marketing mix in terms of offering a collaboration tool, not just for social content, but for everything content marketing.
You mentioned so far that obviously you've got a lot of US customers, and with the seed round, the plan to attack even further in the US. So it's a big market, right? With the biggest market out there. I guess kind of pre-COVID, how were you doing that? You know, from Bucharest to the US. So like, did you have a team over there, or was it you know staying up late, or just flying over to the US? And now you also mentioned it's getting easier. Can you elaborate a little bit on how it's getting easier to sell to these global markets?
Yes. So before COVID, we were doing a lot of inside sales. So we didn't have, and we still don't have a team in the US. And we're not planning to have it, you know, in the near time future. We were selling, you know, just over Zoom, basically closing, and the contract sizes are, you know, small enough to make sense to close them over Zoom. We did travel quite a lot to conferences and, you know, that kind of stuff, but more for like building the pipeline, you know, getting new leads and so on. Now what's changed, I feel like it doesn't really matter where you are right now. It kind of leveled the playing field a bit for a lot of startups that are not based in major hubs such as, you know, the Silicon Valley or New York. It doesn't really matter where you are because, you know, most of the people are working from home. So you're not missing on any opportunities if you're not, you know, based in New York or in San Francisco, where, you know, before COVID, being there, you know, gave you a huge advantage, you know, just ad hoc events that were happening, you know, ad hoc opportunities. Now everything is online. So it doesn't really matter if you're based in New York or if you're based in, I don't know, in somewhere in Eastern Europe or somewhere in Australia. It doesn't really matter. So I think that it leveled the playing field in that regard.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so Planable is a marketing collaboration platform.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit. So in your experience, what does it take for a marketing team to be successful?
Yeah, so I'll tell you my story of how I was unsuccessful in my previous social media marketing agency, and then I'll tell you what we do to fix that. So before Planable, as I mentioned, I was leading my own agency, and the way we were collaborating on content, both internally but also externally with clients, was in a very fragmented and very time-wasting process. Operationally, we were using spreadsheets. We were planning content inside the spreadsheet that was being shared, you know, over email, lots of back and forth, lots of, you know, messages, lots of copy pasting and a lot of tedious tasks. And there's a few particularities around social media planning that really make the job difficult when you're working in spreadsheets. And the first of them is you're working with very visual, moving, graphic content that cannot be presented in a good way inside the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is not visual enough. So that's the first difficulty that we're solving with Planable, where we give social media managers an environment where they can create content and they can actually, what you see is what you get, you know, the WYSIWYG model, where you can actually visualize how your content is going to look like while you're creating it. So there's no misunderstandings inside the team. You know, it's really where it's really clear where you're going to get in the end, and everyone is literally on the same page and aligned with what the post is going to look like. So that's, you know, the first thing, that you got to have a very visible process and a very visible way of working together as a team so that you're successful when you're collaborating. And then the second part is just about efficiency, trying to eliminate as much of the tedious copy pasting, you know, tedious, boring tasks that are involved in content planning. For example, you know, if you're working in spreadsheets, once, you know, that spreadsheet, that editorial calendar is approved, you then have to schedule it. So you do a lot of copy pasting from that spreadsheet to some other tool, or if you're a bit more technically savvy, you might use Zapier and integrate your Google Sheet with some scheduling tool. But it's, you know, it's a hack, so it doesn't really, you know, in long term, it doesn't scale. So you got to work on the content in the same platform where you're actually scheduling the content, and you got to have your approvals and your conversations and your communication all in the same place for the sake of efficiency. And the last part is just coordination, because, you know, when there's a lot of, you know, stakeholders involved in the process. And I remember in my agency days, I had multiple people that I was communicating with from the client side that had to take a look at content. One was calling me, another one was emailing me. It was just we were very misaligned. So I think that's a major thing that you need to implement in order to have a proper collaboration process. And I think that's even crucial now with everyone working from home, and everyone is at the same table. You're more or less aligned. When everyone is trying to make it work over Zoom and Slack, there's a lot of room for miscommunication and misalignment. So I think trying to bring everyone in the same place is, again, super important for a good process.
Yeah, I guess elaborating on that point in terms of what does like marketing team sort of collaboration look like now this year? What are the changes that you've seen and some of the best practices around that?
Yes, I think this year, in the past 6 months, I've seen teams really taking seriously operations more than ever. Like one day they realize that, they do not have so many things in place, or else before that, operations and processes are not a sexy thing, right? Like no one wants to think about how can I make it better? How can I improve my operations, right? Especially in the marketing world where there's so much talk about the words and creativity and people, that's what people want to focus on. So we don't really look at the operational side of things. And now with everyone working remote, suddenly that became an important topic, and people started to, really carefully look at what their processes looks like. Where can time, fall through the cracks of those inefficient processes. And another trend that I've seen in parallel with that is I feel like marketers are accelerating the building up their tech stack more than ever right now. I feel like there's more tools being added into their tech stack than it was before, just trying to digitalize the way they communicate, just trying to improve the way they gather feedback as an organization, the way they plan, their efforts as a department. So those are the two trends that I've seen in the past 6 months that are relevant.
So yeah, talking of marketing tech stacks, can you share what yours looks like?
Yeah, sure. So we have a bunch of tools that we're using internally. We use Inner Trends for analytics, marketing funnels, basically. Mixpanel for product analytics, Intercom for customer service, SendGrid for newsletters and customer conversations, customer emails, and we use Sansama, which is a tool for task management for us as a team. It's a very kind of simplified and easy to use version of Asana, I would say.
Okay, it sounds like Asana as well. What would you say, like, what advice, if any, like, could you give to marketers this year in terms of how to adapt marketing, or SaaS companies, how to adapt their marketing?
Yeah, I think in terms of adapting their marketing, I think figuring out ways of scaling content production during this period of time is extremely crucial. And I think that's going to rely a lot on them being very flexible with resources, right? Like with freelancers, with contractors, with probably building more low-key type of content, right? Like more authentic and relatable, iPhone, just shot that on my iPhone type of content. That is also, I think, well received by the audiences right now. And that's basically, the only way you can actually do it right now. You can't really, take an entire team and, do commercials in a studio anymore. So just being flexible and kind of like adopting this agile startup mentality where you do it with the resources that you have at the moment. I think that's the only way you can continue doing marketing in 2020 in terms of content production.
What are some of the, if you think back to when you're obviously founding the company to now, some of the sort of like one or two key lessons that you've learned along the way that you'd be happy to share?
So I think one key lesson that I would say, one key lesson that was extremely, important for us as a milestone and as just a piece of knowledge was never settling. I think that's something that we like, it is our, one of our values at Planable, just, always going the extra mile with customer service, with marketing, with design, with our product development. It's never good enough. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned building Planable. And another one is probably, it's kind of, they contradict themselves in a way. It's, perfect is the enemy of good. I think we overdid it a bit at the same time with the never settling. So I think, you got to balance it. I think that's the overall biggest lesson.
What about, I guess, over the last few months and like with COVID and, I mean, are you able to kind of share in any way, how it sort of impacted you as a business and what you've learned as a leader during this time?
So that might be an unexpected lesson, but the lesson I took from this entire period of time is that I personally, as a leader, need to learn to be more comfortable with taking risks, especially in uncertain situations and uncertain times. And, there's a saying, don't let a good crisis go to waste. So I think at the beginning of this pandemic, I went into crisis mode very seriously. I did my, budgets, my cash flows, my planning, and I was very, very serious of not spending more or not making any changes, just trying to weather the storm as much as possible. And I think I missed some opportunities. I mean, we did, we pivoted our positioning on our website. We launched resources for remote work. So we did all of that good stuff. But at the same time, I feel like we missed some opportunities because I was too careful and probably too cautious with this entire pandemic. And we were in a good position, actually. So we were not in a position where we had to cut costs of, we didn't do any layoffs, and we did pause some investments just to see what's happening with the world. But, it wasn't as bad for us, nearly as bad as we expected. And I think that's one lesson that I took from this. I got to be more willing to take risks, even in risky environments.
Yeah, I guess having that the good defensive play and a good offensive play at the same time, right?
Yeah, true. Yes, exactly.
And then lastly, we always ask our guests how they stay healthy and sane. I mean, running a business is it's never easy. So what is your way? How have you managed to stay healthy and sane over the last few years?
Yeah, barely, but so I'm trying. I figured out that what works for me best is to go into the nature as much as possible. So, and this summer I hiked quite a lot. So I go, there's beautiful mountains in Romania. So I go there and we hike, and together with a couple of friends, and it's you release a lot of the bad energy when you struggle on, hiking and climbing a mountain. So it's good for your energy, and it's good to just refresh. And it's also a good place right now because it's kind of isolated. There's not that many people out there right now. So that's my way of kind of surviving right now.
So it's a good way. I'm thinking of a digital detox if I can this weekend. I don't have any Romanian mountains, but we've got some okay beaches near my house. So
that's a good alternative.
I could do some like sand angels or something like that. Fun there. But look, it's been great speaking to you. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, LinkedIn. Just connect with me. Drop me a message that you heard me on this podcast, and I'm more than happy to chat.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, thanks so much for being a guest on the show, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks a lot, Alex. That was great chatting with you.